You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
You can handle the truth, folks. And the truth is that the end is just the beginning. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I sure hope that our streaming service, that our internet connection is lip syncing my words to my lips. A lot of times I feel like a kung fu movie as I come to you from the Prepared Mind bunker. But folks, I thought this was 2022, not 2012, not 2002. Right now we're supposed to have super duper high speed access everywhere. The whole world's interconnected. Technology. Well, funny, media and technology seems to be failing us here. I don't remember paying half of what I normally pay for my internet service. That I pay full price and I would expect to get full service and full quality. Well, if you are a Netflix subscriber, and I am not, you're paying for a fool of a service. Now, I'm not saying you're a fool, but you're paying for a fool of a service. And by the way, they have tanked. This is just the beginning of the end, and it's the end of the SHTF beginning. We're just starting, folks. We've got years, if not another full decade. The decade of the 2020s is going to be remembered the way the 1930s was. It's a bunch of crap, economic turmoil, loss, destruction, combined with global fascist efforts to take over the world. That's right, socialist authoritarians trying to take over the world, just like the 1930s, with socialists in communist Russia battling against socialists in Nazi Germany for who gets to dominate the world. Oh my God. Unbelievable, folks. So let's start off with something light and then move into more heavy material. Now, this is this is my monologue, the first half hour. You guys get the second half hour for Q&A. It is hump day. It's Wednesday. It's what the F Wednesday. It's going to be a good rocking time, folks. And I'm trying to stay optimistic that we're making a difference and we're waking people up. That's the goal. That, my friends, is the goal, is to wake people up and to make sure you and I are communicating, and we're all communicating, all of us, folks. We're communicating about what is happening, and we're predicting where this is going. I know that I say through my media promotions that I'm the prophet of prepping. Folks, guess what? You are too. Long time ago, you said, you know what? I'm going to have to look into that prepping thing. I think there's some merit to it. It's not like you were following. You were starting to think with your own mind, and you were leading yourself. All we're doing is trying to wake each other up and then lead ourselves out of darkness. But these are dark times, are they not? Make sure, folks, you have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Now, down here, there we are. It's over here. We got a bunch of our affiliate companies. That is, people who are willing to work with the Prepared Mind Network to supply you guys with goodies. From time to time, Jolene is just going to flash them up there at the bottom of the screen, right over here, right? She'll put up links to various companies we're doing business with, whether they supply food or water purification, whether they supply body armor, electronic equipment, like radios, gear, etc. Whatever it is that we're trying to make sure everyone has. Medicine, that's pretty important, right? Like with our medical company, we've got Jay's Medical, and they've got an emergency antibiotic guide. You need medicines, folks. They're shutting everything down. China is. They are. And it seems like in the world of education, they're shutting down our children's brains. Now, in Louisiana, folks, a teacher has said that if educators can teach children about gender identity, then she should be allowed to teach them about God. Now, to be more specific, she says, teach them that God doesn't make mistakes. And I take a little umbrage with that. I think God made creatures that are very capable of making very large mistakes. Right? He gave them free will. Now, how do you use your free will, for good or evil? Well, we certainly see, folks, how evil uses their free will. And so we're going to go to Pennsylvania. Once again, more schools. But in this case, folks, the Pennsylvania School Board has rejected an after-school club for elementary students. Well, why would they reject this after-school board? Well, it's the School Satan Club. Unbelievable, folks. Well, this is a big duh, and thank you, school board, right? I mean, domestic terrorists with children, parents or domestic terrorists with children have woken up and they have decided that woke is not working, right? The rainbow, satanic, pedophilia programs for gender bender drugs and rape cover-up are being rejected. Across the country, folks, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, all over the country, folks. It's unbelievable what they're trying to push on children. And that's the education system. I'm not talking about social media. I'm not talking about Hollyweird, not talking about Disney in this case. I'm talking about the schools themselves having an after-school club for young Satanists. Well, what took so long? Well, I know it took a long time, but here we are. We're waist deep in SHTF. It's only going to get deeper as we fight back, but at least you and I and a good deal of America are awake, waking up, and are ready to fight back. Prep to action, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, again, I wanted to start with humor, right? So in Colorado, a state representative, not a federal representative or someone running for federal office, they're running for state federal office. He is suing to have "Let's Go Brandon" added to his name on the GOP primary ballot. Seems to me what he's trying to do is distinguish himself from the other GOP or Republican nominees. He wants everyone to know that he's the "Let's Go Brandon" candidate, that he is absolutely opposed to that mentality, right? And it's incredible that he has to sue to get that on there. Isn't it freedom of speech? What wasn't freedom of speech to protect political free speech? I seem to remember learning about that somewhere back in the 7th grade, but apparently judges around the country, it is a company, folks, it's a corporation. Judges around the company corporation country, they seem to have forgotten what free speech is and what it isn't. They've forgotten what rights are and what privileges are. Government has privileges. Corporations have privileges. The people have rights. Now, let's just jump right in. A big thank you again to Mr. T for creating our promotional material. Jolene has done some, and Mr. T continues to provide information. He is now, I'm pretty sure, no longer in California, but somewhere in the South. Mr. T providing good stuff there. Anyways, Ukraine, the war, Russia, NATO, the United States, Biden, Putin, and don't forget China. They want to be in there too. Anyways, Ukraine has received fighter jets from an unnamed U.S. ally, says the Pentagon. So once again, the West is not encouraging peace through diplomacy, saving the people of Ukraine by surrendering to Russia and agreeing to their terms of surrender. Instead, the military industrial complex, the MIC, the MIC, has decided they want to push war. The Pentagon wants to push war. NATO wants to push war in a freaking hopeless situation. So they give jets. So I've got some questions, folks. Again, let's ask questions. In addition to, aren't you glad you're a prepper? I'll say these fighter jets. Okay, who's going to fly them? Ukraine tards who last flew the technological equivalent of a wooden biplane. They're going to fly these new super duper high-tech jets. Or will NATO pilots fly them as privateers, sanctioned non-military pilots who are going to go in and engage Russian fighters, Russian helicopters, Russian tanks, Russian bombers? Who owns these jets? Ukraine? Just a funny question. Well, who's going to work on these jets for the so-called Ukrainian Flying Circus Air Force? And I have to ask this, and when Russia shoots them down, will the U.S. government repay the nation's loss for lending those jets to Ukraine? And don't forget, 10% goes to the big guy, of course. Big bucks for the big guy. It's always about the big guy and these payoffs, wanting to send billions and billions more to Ukraine to fight a war they cannot win. They cannot win, folks. Ukraine cannot win this. It would be like the state of Florida saying, we're going to fight the United States of America, and we have a militia and a military, and we're coming after you. The United States, with all the other states and the military, would just destroy whatever efforts Florida had. The reason I brought that up is not because I think Florida is going to try and declare war on the United States. Certainly Florida is not going to try and bring in Russian nuclear missiles. The point is just showing how outsized, outgunned, and out-trained and everything. Now, here's the deal. The Ukraine military, for whatever success it has had on the ground engaging the Russians, they have been being trained for over, 2014 to 2022, at least 8 years. 8 years. And I'm sure before the 2014 coup d'etat, in which Zelensky, the butt pirate, became president, I'm sure they were training for years before that receiving training from special forces, military advisors, CIA, etc. So yeah, let's give them another 2 years of training prior. They got 10 years training. It only goes so far. It's not a fair fight. And war never is a fair fight, folks. When you win, you're like, yeah, kick their ass. And when you get your ass kicked, you're like, holy cow, we were outnumbered, outgunned. We were tricked. It was an ambush. Whatever. Ukraine is not going to win this. So why are we continuing to fight it and encourage it and push it? It's because there is an incredible agenda, folks, that's playing out right now. And now for more news from Ukraine, more satire. Some things just make me laugh. Well, this didn't make me laugh when I heard about it. Russia tests nuclear-capable Icbm as Putin warns the enemies of Russia, that would be the United States, NATO, Biden, warns his enemies it's, quote, food for thought. And I thought, he is such a polite, genocidal, atrocity-committing leader of the biggest nuclear superpower on the planet. So Russia is testing an ICBM, kind of like North Korea likes to fire their Scud-style missiles into the North Sea or the North Japanese Sea. Russia doing this, folks. They test fired apparently successfully, and again, this is according to Russia and Putin. They successfully fired off a new ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. And according to Chris P. Bacon, a noted authority in the world of the prepared mind, it also has MIRV capability. So MIRV or multiple warheads. When I learned about multiple warhead technology back in 1982, when I was in 6th grade, I learned what a MIRV was. It's, this big missile goes up and the head opens up, and 8 or a dozen or 20 or whatever the number is, nuclear warheads all fall out and target different cities, different areas, different missions. So one ICBM can hit, anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen different targets. Well, this is a new nuclear warhead capable tipped ICBM. And Putin sends a message with it, folks, to his enemies. Now, wait a minute. Are his enemies really NATO and the US? Or is Putin sending a message to the World Economic Forum, to the Davos gang, to the General Illuminati Council? And maybe, well, he says it's food for thought. Maybe the message actually is, I can cook you like a chicken. I can cook you like a chicken, Western oligarchs. Or maybe it reads, you can scare the rabbits, but not the bear. Say hello to my little friend. Most definitely, folks, the message implies you can run, but you can't hide if you really want to fight. Russia is claiming there is nothing on the planet anywhere near this weapon. Now, I don't work for Jane's Defense. I don't know. I'm not a military specialist. I'm a satirist. I'm a philosopher, according to the Internal Revenue Service. Right? So I'm here talking, sharing, using satire. But to me, it's a pretty nasty threat. See, the Soviet Union, when it was a communist socialist empire, they fought with the United States using, I would say, a much better use of their funds to create weapons that were just as capable of ours, though seemingly less technical in nature, right? They made bargain basement versions of everything we made. And sometimes, and in many cases, I should say, they were actually better. Like the Soviet space program was far more advanced than the American space program and had far more firsts. First in space, first person in space, first monkey in space, first spacewalks, first this, first that. They were good. So why would I believe now that with the much tinier, like 1/50th, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, in the comments, but about 1/50th of the military expenditure, the budget of our military industrial complex here in the United States, and they're able to develop their hypersonic missile system, which is better than ours. They have a better electronic warfare system than ours, and now they have food for thought. They're feeding the world, folks, while they're also telling the world, you're going to have a much harder time feeding yourself. As a quick reminder, global rice production is going to plunge 10%. 10% of the rice is 500 million people. 500 million people are going to be affected directly. In other words, if you were to just say, look, you're going to get rice and you're not. And since the 10% is missing, the group that is not, that's 500 million people will get no rice this year. That's really not a good thing, right? I say expect food increases, even on staples like rice, beans, corn, wheat, flour, 100% increase. I'm just not making the call. It's coming, folks. Are you prepared? And this is scaring the shit out of me. I knew it was coming. I'm fully prepared. The bunker has a good supply of Spam, tuna, Have a good supply of rice, have a good supply of what we need. We have a nice supply of condiments, a decent supply of spices, and good water filtration. Folks, make sure you've got what you need for at least a 3-month interruption in food supplies. And understand, anything you buy today, and again, you could, buy stuff right here. Go to the preparedmind.club and buy long-term food storage, and it's only going to go up in value. There is no, and let me remind everyone, it's not like they go, oh, wait a minute, we just got a shipment of Cabbage Patch Kids in from China. We are good now. The shortage is over. That's not how food works. It's not like the oil where they go, well, we have a strategic oil supply and we're going to open it up and oil prices will drop. They don't have that for food. In fact, we've had food experts get a hold of the Prepared Mind Network and say, look, we've gone from having a 6-month surplus of food to a 4-month, to a 90-day, to a 45-day. Stores are getting less of what they want and order because there's less out there. They're not getting their orders filled. They're getting what's available. There is no emergency food supply on a national or regional basis in the United States of America. At some point, folks, it's going to be what we have on the shelf is all we have available. Right? We've talked about how they front the cans. Now, both of my kids in high school, both my sons, worked at a grocery store, and they, I said, what'd you do today? Well, I fronted cans. They go, what's that? And I go, well, if there's missing cans where people shop, you move the other ones to the front so it looks pretty. Well, now you go remove that front can. In a lot of cases, you look behind it, and there's not many cans behind it. It used to be cans were double stacked, and they would go all the way to the back of the shelving unit. You look up top on the top shelf, and there'd be like cases of goods stacked up. It's not that way anymore, and that's not going to change quickly. They can't just say, yeah, let's turn on the printer and print up some more food the way they can print up US dollars. You can't print your way out of a food shortage. There is no magic storage facility for us, the people. Now, the government, the US government and its bureaucracies, they do have, folks, SHTF, emergency preparations, bunkers, food, water, and all they need for continuity of government. If they have that for them, shouldn't you have it for you and yours? Not a bad question in my book. I think we should all think about that. If the government is preparing, oughtn't you not as well? I don't know if that was correct English or not, but it sure felt funny saying it. All right. Food, folks, it is becoming a more real product that we're not going to be able to get. Get your questions into Jolene. Folks, the most popular president in U.S. history appeared in New Hampshire yesterday. He was greeted by people shouting, let's go Brandon, and FJB, and every other thing in the planet. This guy, supposedly the most popular president ever elected, couldn't barely get 100 people. There were empty chairs, empty tables. It's a national embarrassment, folks, that we're supposed to believe that this guy is that popular. Wherever he goes, he is greeted, folks, with disdain, distrust. Nobody likes his policies. Nobody likes what he's doing. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, Tesla, Elon Musk, his stock is soaring with popularity. No, with people enthusiastic about buying his product. Yeah. But the U.S. State Department, or not the State Department, please forgive me on that one. The government is going after Elon Musk. The Security and Exchange Commission, the Department of Justice, they're going after this guy because he's gone after Twitter. Tesla, for some reason, is opening his mouth, right? He is gone after Twitter. He's doing a hostile takeover. He's getting investors to help him with that, because I think when he's done with Twitter, he's going to go after someone else. A lot of people are hoping it's Facebook. You know what I say? I don't care about Facebook. I want Musk to take over YouTube. I want him to take over YouTube. It is a much bigger, louder, and better voice. It's not just a few choice lines and maybe a short video clip. It's real information. There were so many awesome prepper, patriot networks that were on here that were absolutely destroyed when they removed all of the money that was paid to them. Right? There was a short time there, folks, where this channel was growing really quick, and it looked like it was going to make a lot of money, even that I could buy and pay for a big staff and a real production facility. That lasted like 2 months, that feeling, because they destroyed it all and took it away. If Elon Musk took over YouTube, right, there would be Alex Joneses everywhere. Who was the other guy? Yeah, Joe Rogan, who's still really big, but he left YouTube because they destroyed it. The same idea that YouTube is treating its shareholders, its owners like shit by destroying the money-making capability of it. Anyways, Tesla is through the roof. Musk is heavily supported. And in fact, today he ripped into Netflix, folks. He ripped it as woke and unwatchable. And Netflix has gone from its high of like $700 a share down to $200. It's fallen over another 30% today alone. The company's losing, folks. But Elon Musk is ultra vocal. Now he's got the SEC and the government coming after him. I think it's because Twitter is a government institution. I think it's because Netflix is a pseudo-government institution full of a bunch of woke programming crap. But Musk seems to be vocal against it, even though he himself, Musk, is the beneficiary of a lot of government dollars, funding, projects, etc. I wonder what's going on here. I wonder what is happening in our world. It's incredible, right? The get woke, push pedophilia, demand destruction of your subscriber base with socialism, Netflix, right? It's incredible that they wanted to put all that trash on there and expect the investor class to pay for the ESG social and political goals. We're not buying it. See, folks, the end is just the beginning. We're just now starting to fight back. We don't have the people, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources to fight back with the same level of power that the government and these corporations are, but we're making a difference. People are pulling their money out of Disney, pulling their money out of Netflix. They're putting their money in other places where it belongs, or at least where there's a chance of return. People are pulling their faith out of government, and they're starting to reject corporations and social justice groups. The end of that era of naive ignorance, that's over. But the SHTF is just now beginning, in my opinion. It's just now beginning. By the way, get your questions in. We're coming up at the half-hour mark, which means I'm going to get to your questions, folks. Your questions here on the Prepared Mind channel. It's time for the Q&A. And here we go.
Are you ready?
Oh, well. Let's see. Mic check, John. You're on the camera. Mic again, John. Am I on the camera? We're having a lot of trouble with the internet. At the beginning of the video, when I complained about everything, we really are having trouble with our equipment. See, if I go over to that, is that any better? I don't know. Hard to tell since I'm live right now, but we're having equipment issues. We're having connectivity issues. Is this where we're at in the 21st century? In the year 2022, our equipment goes from really good, and then just all of a sudden, a couple matter of weeks, it's bad. Well, I guess maybe I should check my software. I don't know. Anyways, let's get to your questions, your comments, your thoughts. It is now your show. And we've got Latin American Preparedness checking in, and he says, protests at Target Center in Minneapolis by animal rights activists over the suffocation of 24 million chickens. Other disruption affecting food supply reported with famine likely. What food or foods grow quickly? Okay. Yeah, there's protests by animal rights activists. Yeah, where have these people been? You know, they really are, in my opinion. Some of them probably have kind hearts. I think they're just as dangerous. And they have been for many, many years. Back when I was in high school in Northern California, PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, behaved with terrorist activities. They attacked, they burned, they committed sabotage at college campuses where animal or experiments were conducted on animals. They threatened people, they went to their homes. They've always been there, these animal activists. They didn't want the trees getting cut down, so they hammered metal spikes into the tree trunks. So when timber harvesters came in with chainsaws, their saws would hit these metal spikes. It'd rip the chain off and cause all kinds of havoc, including serious, if not deadly, injuries to human beings. But they don't care about humans, folks. And that's the thing, is these people, in my opinion, don't really care about humans. They claim to love animals, but they would rather see humans die. It's that same mentality of, we hate humans, so it's okay to kill babies. It's the same people, the same mentality. Do I like to see chickens suffocated? No, because they should be made into buffalo wings and nuggets and chicken breast sandwiches and fried chicken and baked chicken, rotisserie chicken. I like chicken, right? 24 million chickens, though. That's a lot of chickens. That's a lot of food that's no longer going to be in the food pipeline. See, right now, if you go to the store, the chickens you're getting have likely been in a freezer for quite some time. And they are just now being distributed. Thawed out, put on the shelf. There you go. Have some chicken. Right? They're disrupting the food supply chain by removing these chickens. Now, your question is, what food grows quickly? Rice, you have one chance to plant it, grow it, and harvest it in 1 year. And it's a huge harvest. Wheat, right? You got winter wheat, regular, right? Same story. Corn, same story. It takes a whole year to get grains out of the ground. Tomatoes, you can collect by hand again and again, but they typically harvest them with machines, one shot. Now, animals, on the other hand, you can get chicken after chicken after chicken after chicken out of, or fryers or whatever you want to call them, out of chickens. They reproduce quickly. They grow up and go from hatchling to fryer quick. I think it's a total of 2 months. So you can grow it quickly, but you have to feed the chickens something. Right? And the cheapest thing is what they feed chickens and hogs and cows, whatever they can feed them that's cheap. Right? So in the case of corn, right, they'll harvest the corn, put the corn off to the side for turning into human food. You know, corn off the cob, corn on the cob, high fructose corn syrup, canned corn, etc. But they chop the rest of the corn plant up, the stalks and everything, feed it to cows. Have you noticed we haven't heard about GMO foods? That's not really in the news cycle anymore. They're still out there. They're still pushing these GMOs. But now we're just worried about getting any food, huh? Right? What does the person who's starving care whether they've got organic, GMO free, or some weird ass GMO food that they have no idea what they're getting? It just looks like and maybe tastes like food. We got some problems. Hogs are born from and go from wiener to to bacon pretty quick. It takes months though. And the fact that they've raised all these chickens just to slaughter them represents a loss of the meat as well as a loss of the feed. Right now, can they take the chickens and grind them up and turn them into some other sort of food product, like maybe dog food or cat food? I don't know. I don't know what the rule is on slaughtering chickens because they've done that because of some bird flu. I just don't know. We got problems, folks, and it's not going to get better. This is just the beginning. Right? We have the end of cerveza bug madness, even though they won't let it die, they won't let it go away, and they're promising us they'll bring it back. Right? It's basically phase 1 is over. It's on to phase 2, which is war, phase 3, famine, and then they'll reintroduce pestilence again. War, famine, and pestilence, riding with death. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, next question coming from you guys. Questions, comments, statement, a person, an event, a thought, an idea. I will address it. I'll make you famous here if you want, or I'll just read your question. We got Mike Landacos checking in. Big Mike. He says a statement for John. You should encourage your audience to test their water for venomous substances and report the results back here. Go through a private company that can detect trace amounts. You use the word venomous, like snake venom. Test water for carcinogens. Test it for contagions. Test it for biomaterial or dissolved solids. Test it for medications. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. I would love it if people would test their city water and their well water, depending on what you have, sending it to a private lab. I don't know any labs that do testing. I haven't done that in quite some time. It's probably been 4 years. And when the test came back, it was pretty interesting. It's hard to it's hard to read things and understand it. There's a lot of dissolved garbage in water, which is why we really recommend going to the thepreparedmind.club and getting a Berkey water filter through our vendors, right? You don't realize what's happening to you if you're being poisoned until you stop poisoning yourself. Right? There's been times in my life when I was doing things wrong and I didn't realize it. Then I stopped doing that and I felt a whole lot better. I was like, holy cow, I quit eating as many carbohydrates. Holy cow, right? Quit eating as much sugar. Once you kick the addiction, if you will, you'll find yourself in a much healthier state. I tell you, folks, it is quite incredible. We've got a lot of people out there who are just plain old sick. They got the cerveza. They've got the Jim Jones juice. They're not feeling quite as good as they used to, and I think they're keeping it quiet. I think they're not saying anything. It's really, really, really concerning. All right, we got Serge, and he asked the question, did any fallen empire in history have armed citizens? It's an interesting question you asked because arms used to mean any weapon. Take up arms. Firearms have only been around approximately 500 years. The use of gunpowder to fire a projectile out of a barrel, either a cannon size or a handheld size. It's only been around a few hundred years. And in the last couple hundred years, we've had just a few empires, if you will. We had the Spanish Empire, which was kind of run by the Spanish Armada. We had some imperialistic nations out there like Portugal and Spain and France and England and the Netherlands, and they colonized a good deal of the world. I don't know if I would call them empires that have come and fallen, because for the most part, in my opinion, the Western world, that would be European nations, have been at the forefront of technological innovation, industrialization, benefiting from an increase in wealth through its imperialism of North and South America, Africa, parts of the Asian subcontinent, Australia, etc. So if we want to go back to another empire, you could go back to the Muslim Empire. I don't think Ottoman Empire is the correct terminology for it. But if you go back 1,000 years, the early Muslims were very advanced, and they did have arms. I don't think they really fell, though, the way the Roman Empire did. I think they were just, they stagnated and kind of went away. But they have kept arms in the, shall we say, Muslim world, Northern Africa, Middle East, etc., maybe even parts of the Far East. The Viking Empire, if you wish to call them an empire, they were all armed, and they flourished, if you want to use the word for the Viking Empire. Also, they coexisted at the same time as the Muslims. They were up in the very north, while Central Europe, or from England down to Spain, they just kind of puttered along and languished. Going back to the Roman Empire, I think, is a really good look. The people in the Roman Empire, they may have had arms, swords, right? They did not have firearms, swords. That really didn't play into the fall of the empire. The fall of the Roman Empire was an economic and social collapse. It did have military elements, according to the experts that I've read about, because the, shall we say, decadent, corrupt, immoral leadership ended up using the Roman legions to cannibalize its own people. And I don't mean that in a literal sense, but rather going after the wealthy amongst their own. Once they could no longer conquer other peoples, other nations, other areas, they started attacking themselves. So one political party, if you will, one partisan group that had power would plunder its own. And it would use the military, it would use its own garrisons, it would use its own men-at-arms to attack others. And so there could have been some resistance there, but it was really, I think, more of a citizen versus citizen, or partisans fighting each other over religious reasons. The Christians, folks, the Christians were attacked in the more early part of the Roman Empire, but at the fall of the empire, the Christians they burned the Library of Alexandria. They took their revenge on non-Christians. There was a big religious battle within the Roman Empire, and they used whatever they had on each other. Fire was a big weapon. Armed citizens, see, when you're fighting someone with a sword, all you've got to do is be faster with a sharp stick or an arrow. And so, these tools of the trade, tools of war, were available to people back then. Now, if we fast forward again into the Dark Ages of England, which I referred to as being kind of not advancing the way the northern folks did. Remember that the Scandinavians colonized Iceland, and then Greenland, and then North America along the East Coast, and then into the Great Lakes and down into the central parts of the United States of America. The remnants of them have been found, folks. They were doing a great deal of colonizing, but there was a medieval warming period. That's right. Global warming got so warm that they were growing grapes in England, and Greenland wasn't covered in ice the way it is now. And we had a mini ice age, and now we're getting warm again, and they want to scream, of course, climate change, radical climate change, catastrophic climate change. We're all going to die. Everyone give us your money for carbon. Oh, yeah, by the way, again, plants, which turn into our food, like carbon. It is fertilizer. It is food for plants. Why are we going to remove it again? All right. Never mind. If you look into experiments putting plants in a very, very carbon dioxide rich environment, they thrive. They absolutely thrive. Anyways, back to weapons and fallen empires. The Roman Empire, during its decline, had all kinds of religious issues. It also had a lot of sexual deviancy. They had a lot of social freedom to practice all sorts of licentiousness and hedonistic practices. That became more important to them, folks, than sustaining an empire properly. Its need for energy, just like we have a need for energy, and we're finding it in oil, coal, we're finding it in natural gas and nuclear energy. Back then, all they had was fire. So they burned wood, coal. Right? They needed metals, copper, brass was a metal they came up with. Copper, brass, iron. They needed gold and silver for money. They used salt as money. More basic resources for more basic needs. The Roman Empire had weapons, but that wasn't the reason for the fall, and the weapons could not save the empire either. See, weapons don't save. They're a tool of expansionism and a tool of corruption that destroys. Like I said, the religious elements, kind of like our environmentalist religious wackos, they're every bit as dangerous as any fundamentalist religious cult gone wild. Kind of like the Catholics, they went wild with the Inquisition under the corrupt power of the popes. And then the Protestants, they had their fits of authoritarianism as religious wackos, accusing women of being witches and accusing men of being warlocks, and essentially prosecuting and persecuting people for not believing. And of course, we still have the other religious wackos out there. When they start having cultish belief systems, look out. So armed empires, you see, let's go back to Rome again. In Jerusalem, they had weapons. And you can find in the New Testament where it's said, sell your cloak to buy a sword. So weapons were available. Right? Except there's a difference between a man with a sword and a trained militant with a sword. It's a big difference in their ability to be, how do we say this, effective. Now, with guns, it's quite a bit of a different story. It is a very equalizing force, and anybody can buy a gun, become proficient with a gun, with time, a little money, and some practice. You can become proficient. It's just a force of 5 people versus a force of 500. Same issue that Jesus ran into when he was traveling with his disciples, and a cohort of Romans arrested them. That's a lot of Romans to take down just a few disciples. Once again, it's right there. So yeah, fallen empires, the people had arms, but the problem wasn't the arms. The problem was the corruption and just the pure evil of those empires. That's what really brought them down. Right? The Persian Empire, it had its problems. It fell. And when an empire crumbles, people are on their own. SHTF. You've got to have, right, food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, whether it's a club or sword, an AR-15. Your odds of surviving this collapse, where you're going to have religious wackos, whether there's some kind of real religion or some kind of fake religion like environmentalism, they're going to be very dangerous. You're also going to have your radical sexual weirdos, just like the Romans had. And it's a social issue. They're socially corrupt, but they're every bit as willing to attack others for it. Crazy stuff. Anyways, thank you, Serge, for the great topic. I could probably drone on and on and on, but we're going to move on. And we're going to move on to Kathy, who says, a lady walked out of our local grocery store with $2,000 of meat and no one stopped her. This is going to continue to get worse and only cause prices to go up more. What do you do in this situation? Any type of detainment on a civilian's part would surely catch charges, even though she was the criminal. There used to be this thing called citizen's arrest. You could arrest another citizen for committing a crime. Now, the crime that we really like to think about as stopping is someone who is committing an act of rape, right? We should stop that person. That's wrong. The police would probably say, thank you very much, put handcuffs on that person, throw their ass in jail, prosecute them, etc. Right? The other one is violent crime. Someone's beating the shit out of somebody, mugging them, committing theft, right? If you were to see somebody committing an act of theft, you go stop that person, you do a citizen's arrest. The person who is being assaulted and robbed will testify to the police or offer evidence. When the police show up, yeah, this guy was robbing me, he was beating me up, this person over here saved me, and that's the bad guy on the ground right there. Police take their notes, arrest the bad guy, you're a hero. Now we move on to basic theft. There used to be this thing called grand theft. That is a dollar amount above a specific amount. That is a felony versus a misdemeanor. Food, though, right? Petty theft, right? Misdemeanor theft. What happens if you stop somebody with a shopping cart full of food? You said $2,000 in meat products, right? Like going to, let's say, a Costco, getting one of those big ass carts, or going to a Sam's Club and getting one of those big ass carts, or even going to Walmart and getting one of those big ass carts and filling it full of frozen meat, and then just walking out the door. Now, should you do a citizen's arrest? If you were to try that, you could be charged with assault. You assaulted that person. You put your hands on them. You detained them. You put them on the ground. Maybe you even tied them up a little bit, called the police, and they're showing up and going, okay, that person was committing a crime, but you too committed a crime. You're like, no, citizen's arrest. That person stole hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars in goods, which is going to deprive others. It's going to hurt the business. I just did a good thing. And the cops may say you're the bad person. Now, let's look at this a different way. The person is stealing the food. They've stolen the food. A crime has been committed. You witnessed it. Many others witnessed it. What if you didn't arrest the other person, but you just grabbed a hold of the shopping cart, maybe even got some other people to join you and say, we're not arresting this person, folks, but we're going to stop them from stealing this food by hanging on to that cart. Now you got a tug of war. Is a tug of war a crime? Well, tug of war, it's not really a war. It's just a tugging match. Can the person who stole the food say you're stealing from them? Could the person who stole the food say that you're interfering with their right to steal something? Or you're more, in truth, you're interfering with their ability to get away with a crime? You know, if they injure themselves, like, I pulled my shoulder because these people wouldn't let me steal food, is that your fault? Or is that their fault for injuring themselves, pulling and fighting, trying to get that cart free? I really don't know what I would do, folks, in the event I witnessed someone with a cartload of food leaving a store. would I get on the phone with the police, 911? Police, I'm witnessing what appears to be grand theft hamburger. It's grand theft filet mignon. It's grand theft, right? I don't know if it is or not, but I suspect it is. And isn't there some kind of Good Samaritan law that says you're supposed to help people or businesses that are being harmed? Don't I have a Good Samaritan responsibility to stop a crime? Well, I'm not going to harm the other person or touch the other person, but I can at least detain the theft, the object, right? It'd be kind of like seeing someone get punched, knocked down. Someone takes their keys, gets in their car, and tries stealing the car. If I see this happening and I pulled up the green tank behind the car and it couldn't leave, right? It's now trapped in that parking spot. Can't go forward. There's a curb and a tree and shit in the way, or a fence. Can't go behind because green tank. You're not gonna push it out of the way with a little automobile. So yeah, just a good question to ask. Can we hang on to that cart? Don't we have every bit as a right as they do to hold on to a cart? It's full of stolen material, stolen goods. I think I might do that. I think I might hang on to that cart and say, okay, who wants to help me hold this cart while the police show up and we decide who has committed a crime here and who hasn't? I think that's really the course of action that I would take and that I would think is a safe recommendation. Now, if you're a small person, say you're a woman and you weigh 120 pounds, and the person stealing the food is 200 pounds, 250 pounds, you're probably not going to win that tug of war. But you might put on one hell of a good show. I don't know. You might stand on the end of the cart and scream, "The person's kidnapping you." I don't know, right? People are going to need to get creative in how they deal with this theft, because this is the type of shit, folks, that happens in a corrupt, immoral society. Just like I talked about the sexual licentiousness and the hedonistic bullshit that was going on in Rome, right? The total acceptance of perversion as normal and claiming that normal is wrong. Yeah, that's today. The use of the police to attack its own people and ensure that the government has enough resources to continue doing what government does, which is steal more resources. We have that today as well. And in fact, I wanted to talk about this real quick as soon as I'm done. That's what I would do. If I saw someone stealing something, I would probably say, okay, I weigh 265 pounds. We're now going to have a tug of war match over this stolen food. I'm helping the store and helping the citizens of this area reduce crime. I'm not going to detain the person, but I will put an end to the theft without harming anybody. And the police will show up, and the thief will be at the very least told you're bad and maybe released. But down here in the South, I think the police look at crime a little differently. But up in California, Illinois, New York, they may just say, well, we have to let this person go. We're not going to convict them. Okay, well, at least the food stays in the frickin' store so people can buy it. All right, and right, the police need to understand, folks, right? There's a story came out today that the Secret Service is furious over the Biden White House lying about how dangerous their German Shepherds were. This came from Judicial Watch, folks. But, right, I don't know how many times we, the people, need to say it. How many times do we have to warn government employees and law enforcement at the local all the way up to the federal levels that you are not on the winning team? You are not in their club. You are little more than a servant at their club, the super wealthy. And you're going to be let go or liquidated, if you want to use that term, at their first convenience. Ultimately, I think the police are going to be replaced with an automated robot, an automaton of some sort, a robot. And it's your long-term destiny to be tossed to the side. The police need to side with the people. They need to tell thieves, you're not allowed to steal money and get away with it. The police that are allowing illegals to come into the country. And it's terrible because their bosses are saying, let them go, let them go, let them go. And these illegals are stealing from us through the government, and they're stealing from stores because the stores, they're not going to call the police because the police won't do anything. We have this incredible, corrupt, insane system that is causing, by allowing it, it's causing our nation, our empire to fail. And the super rich think it's freaking cute, and they're calling it the Great Reset. They want our system destroyed, this empire of freedom, so they can replace it with a feudal empire, a neo-feudal empire where the oligarchs, the aristocrats, are the super rich, the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, the George Soroses, the Zark Zuckerbergs and Jeff Bezos of the world. And a bunch of them, folks, you don't even know their names or who they are, but they're very, very wealthy, and they want to see us destroyed. They want to take our rights away from us, folks. They believe that to have their power, they need to destroy our civil liberties. They need to remove our constitutional protections from the law. Why can't we have our constitutional rights, our property rights, our wealth, and let the rich have theirs? Well, they want to be better than us, folks. And if we have rights, how important are their rights? No, they want to have rights and protections and have us have mere privileges that can be taken away. We can be punished at any time. That's what these rich, sick bastards are doing. We had one more question I want to get to, and Jolene had it up there. Let's toss it back up. We got Mikey G. He says, question, the Russian cruiser Moskva sunk by Ukrainian forces. Was it carrying nuclear weapons when it went down? Thoughts on the vulnerability of our own Navy? Well, number one, I don't know if it was sunk by Ukrainian forces. That's what they're claiming. The Russians are claiming they had a munitions room catch fire and explode. Either way, it's sunk. Did it have nuclear weapons on board? I don't know. Was it nuclear powered? In other words, did it have a small nuclear reactor that created power that powers it the same way submarines have nuclear power, as well as in many cases nuclear weapons? So, yeah. Now, it was being towed, is my understanding. So it was underpowered or unpowered. They probably disabled the nuclear power. I'm pretty sure that ship, as large as it was nuclear powered. I'm sure they disabled the nuclear power. Maybe they had time to remove the nuclear, or rather uranium power rods. And it sank, yeah. Now, as far as the vulnerability of our own Navy, that's been demonstrated in a lot of different ways, with our submarines and our warships running into other ships and running into each other, being disabled through electronic warfare coming from Russia and quite possibly even China. It's been demonstrated again that we are susceptible to attack, susceptible to electronic warfare technology, and they are just as susceptible to military weapons attacks. Right? Why would you create a missile made out of fiberglass that would just bounce off the side of a modern warship? You know, as time has progressed, wooden ships became very thick-hulled, multiple-hulled wooden ships, and cannonballs would bounce off the sides. They got bigger cannonballs. Then they moved to metal ships, steel ships. Cannonballs bounced off. Then they created high explosive tipped, projectiles, and those went through the sides of the hulls of these ships. So then they started creating thicker steel. Right? It's a game of upping the armaments. It's a game of upping the defensive capabilities of ships. And it's moved into the realm of electronic warfare and nuclear weapons. It's always up, 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 up until we get to the point where we self-destruct as a civilization. And that's what we're trying to avoid, the self-destruction of the civilization, blowing us back to caveman times, rock and stick once again. And I think it was Albert Einstein. He says, I don't know what we'll fight World War III with, but I know that World War IV will will be fought with sticks and stones. In other words, whenever World War III really happens, we're going to cause a great deal of damage fighting World War III. I pray it isn't a nuclear war, but even a conventional war at this level could have devastating effects on humanity. But, we need to protect Ukraine. Really? We need to protect a Nazi hostile takeover government in Ukraine with all of our might? Yeah, that's right, folks. Democrats in Washington are calling for the U.S. military to go in and directly engage the Russian military in Ukraine. I don't think that's a good idea. Russia, as stated earlier, has now said, hey, look, we've got a great new weapon. There's nothing else like it on the planet. We got a cool new Icbm. You want to find out how it works? It would be interesting to me if Putin didn't target Washington, D.C., didn't target London, nor Paris, but instead targeted the uber wealthy. What if, through his spy network, Putin figured out where George Soros was and targeted George Soros as a terrorist mastermind, or targeted other rich people, these super rich folks? We go, well, why did that bomb just go off in the European countryside? They didn't hit Brussels. They just took out someone's bunker, someone's private bunker. Wouldn't that be interesting if that's how this war started turning around? Once again, the way I read it, and I know I'm going a little bit long in today's broadcast, but when I read it, when he said, here's some food for thought, wouldn't it be interesting if he went after the World Economic Forum and the Davos Council, the Bilderberg Illuminati types, these really rich oligarchs? After all, has not the United States, England, France, Spain, Italy, and other European nations gone after and attacked Russian oligarchs, that is to say, Russian millionaires and billionaires, and taken their property and said, this is the result of an act of war against you? And I said there'd be consequences for that. What if Putin targeted Western oligarchs? And his thought, here's some food for thought when you see this new Icbm. How about if his message was translated, I can cook you like a chicken, Western oligarchs, in your castles or even in your bunkers? Because did not Putin just go after the Ukraine military, which was in a bunker underneath a steel factory, and level it? Mainstream media, folks, isn't going to give you this type of satire. They're not going to talk to you about this kind of stuff. They're not going to bring up these ideas. That's what I think we really do well here, is share an alternative perspective. It's perspective. How do you view and see empires and how they fall? Is it because they ran out of wood or ran out of iron or ran out of copper? Or did they run out of morality and run out of decency? Right? Did they have weapons? You bet. But what was the biggest weapon? Propaganda, lies, social destruction, cultural destruction. It's going to be a mess, folks. I hope you are fully prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind. Do you have those things necessary to help you get through a couple of weeks or a couple of months of really hard times? And hard times, they are coming. The end is just the beginning of SHTF, right? The end of our old world as the Great Reset goes on. It's just the beginning of our hard times. Semper Fi, folks. Godspeed. Get prepared.